In 2013, Martin Scorsese released a 3-hour film about Jordan Belfort. It was nominated for 5 Academy Awards. It made Jordan Belfort famous again. Leonardo DiCaprio played him as a charismatic, drug-fueled genius. The film was a spectacle, a celebration of excess so extravagant that audiences weren't entirely sure whether they were supposed to be appalled or impressed. The real story is simpler, and in some ways, much darker. Jordan Belfort ran a boiler room on Long Island. He and his partner Danny Porush trained over 1,000 young brokers to cold call ordinary Americans, teachers, retirees, small business owners, and sell them worthless penny stocks using scripts designed to overwhelm their skepticism and exploit their desire to get rich. Once those investors had bought in and driven the price up, Belfort and his partners sold their own shares. The price collapsed. The investors lost their money, and Stratton Oakmont moved on to the next stock. It wasn't genius. It wasn't innovation. It was a phone scam with a brokerage license. By the time the FBI shut it down, Belfort and his associates had defrauded 1,513 investors out of more than $110 million. Most of them got back almost nothing. Belfort served 22 months in prison. Then Jordan Belfort grew up in Queens, New York, the son of 2 accountants. He was a natural salesman. His first business, selling meat and seafood door to door, actually turned a profit. But the company went bankrupt. He tried dental school, left on the first day. He was told that dentistry was no longer the path to wealth it used to be. He joined L.F. Rothschild as a trainee stockbroker in 1987. 6 months later, the stock market crashed. He was laid off. He bounced through a few penny stock firms, learning the mechanics of low-priced shares and high-pressure sales before founding Stratton Oakmont in 1989 with his friend Danny Porush. Stratton Oakmont started small, a converted garage in Queens, a handful of brokers, a phone bank, but the core product was immediately clear. They would buy enormous positions in micro-cap stocks, penny stocks trading below $1, then use their broker network to drive up demand through cold calls. The pitch was simple and seductive. A broker would call a prospective client, establish rapport over days or weeks. This was called opening the account, and then pitch a single stock with enormous enthusiasm. We have inside information. This company is about to explode. You have to move now. Don't tell your wife. The scripts were engineered. Every objection had a counter. Every hesitation had a response. Brokers were trained often as young as 20 years old, with no financial background to keep the client on the line until they committed. Stratton's famous closing line was, "Don't hang up until the client buys or dies." As clients bought, the stock price rose. As the price rose, Stratton sold its own shares, the large position it had accumulated at pennies per share. Then the price collapsed. The investors were left holding worthless stock. Stratton moved on to the next company. The firm grew with extraordinary speed. At its peak, Stratton Oakmont employed over 1,000 brokers. It had been responsible for the initial public offerings of 35 companies. The most famous was Steve Madden. As the money poured in, Belfort faced an increasingly urgent problem. What do you do with hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud proceeds? His solution was a Swiss bank account opened through a contact named Jean-Jacques Sorel, a broker at Union Bank of Switzerland. Belfort began moving money offshore large amounts of cash, transferred through intermediaries, out of reach of American tax authorities and regulators. The logistics were extraordinary. Belfort recruited his first wife's aunt, a British citizen named Patricia Higgs, to act as a nominee account holder in Switzerland. He and his associates physically carried cash out of the country strapped to their bodies, concealed in luggage, moved in quantities just below the threshold that required customs declaration. It was, in the language of investigators, a textbook money laundering operation. The Securities and Exchange Commission had been watching Stratton Oakmont since almost the beginning. The firm was under near constant scrutiny from the NASD, the National Association of Securities Dealers, from 1989 onward. Complaints from defrauded investors piled up. Investigations were launched. Fines were paid. In 1994, the SEC filed a civil suit. Stratton settled for $2.5 million a fine that barely covered a month's profits. Belfort was technically banned from running a brokerage firm as part of the settlement. He simply sold his nominal ownership stake to Porush and continued running the operation informally. Regulators kept watching. The firm kept operating. For 7 years, Stratton Oakmont remained open, defrauding investors, while the NASD issued warnings, conducted hearings, and filed complaints. By the time Stratton Oakmont was shut down, the FBI had opened a parallel investigation focused on money laundering. Federal investigators had been building a case not just against Belfort, but against the network of Swiss bankers, money couriers, and offshore account holders who had helped him hide his proceeds. In 1998, Belfort was arrested. A year later, in 1999, he pleaded guilty to securities fraud and money laundering. He was facing up to 30 years in prison. He made a deal. In exchange for a significantly reduced sentence, Belfort agreed to cooperate with the FBI. He wore a wire. He recorded conversations with former colleagues and partners. He provided testimony that led to the prosecution of dozens of people in his network, including other brokerage houses running similar schemes across Long Island. The cooperation was extensive. Belfort identified money laundering networks, named Swiss bankers, exposed the mechanics of several pump and dump operations beyond Stratton Oakmont itself. His information was, by the government's own assessment, genuinely valuable. But the people he named were his friends, his colleagues, men who had trusted him, built businesses with him, and in some cases gone to prison because of their loyalty to him. Belfort's co-founder, Danny Porush, received 39 months in prison. Others received longer sentences. The Swiss banker Jean-Jacques Sorel was eventually prosecuted. In 2003, Belfort was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. Based on his cooperation, he served 22 months. Jordan Belfort was released from federal prison in 2006. 2 years later, he published The Wolf of Wall Street, his memoir about his years running Stratton Oakmont. It became a bestseller. In 2013, Martin Scorsese adapted it into a film starring Leonardo DiCaprio. The film was a massive commercial success, grossing over $300 million worldwide. It was nominated for 5 Academy Awards. Belfort received payment for the film rights. He rebuilt his public profile as a motivational speaker and business coach, touring the world, delivering talks about sales technique and personal transformation. He charged significant fees. He became famous in a way that his victims did not. The question of restitution became, in the years after the film, increasingly uncomfortable. Belfort had been ordered to pay $110 million in restitution to the 1,513 investors he defrauded. His plea agreement required him to pay 50% of his income toward that obligation. He publicly claimed that he had committed to sending 100% of his book and film royalties to his victims. Prosecutors disputed this. In 2014, representatives of the U.S. Attorney's Office stated that Belfort's claim about his royalty commitment was, in their words, not factual. A report by Businessweek found that before the film's release, Belfort had received approximately $1.2 million in connection with the production and had paid just $21,000 toward victim restitution. As of the most recent available reporting, Belfort has repaid approximately $12 million of the $110 million he owes. The 1,513 people he defrauded have recovered, in total, a fraction of what was taken from them. Jordan Belfort's story is, in many ways, the most American story on this channel. A man commits fraud on an enormous scale. He is caught. He cooperates with authorities. He receives a reduced sentence. He writes a book about his crimes. That book becomes a major Hollywood film. He becomes a famous public speaker, teaching other people how to sell. The people he defrauded, the retirees, the teachers, the small investors who lost their savings to his broker's scripts, have largely not recovered their money. They are not famous. There is no film about them. What Belfort understood, and what his subsequent career demonstrates, is that in America, a story told compellingly enough can replace accountability. The movie was so entertaining that people forgot they were watching a documentary about theft. The most dangerous thing about The Wolf of Wall Street is not the fraud. It's that after everything he won. This was Dark Ledger.